All right, let's take a look at perhaps making some cool pictures. And so I'm going to try to be a little bit more keyboard centric this time. So I'm just going to start thinking like typing 6 and then maybe some color like green and then 6 green, 6 green, 6 green, and then another square perhaps. And now I'm off the screen, so I'm just going to shrink this a little bit, and then I'm going to turn right and maybe make this olive. And so here's where I'm going to try to be. I could do the following: 6 green, 6 green, 6 green, 6 green. Or I could have left those greens off because once it's green, it sort of remembers. And so I could have done 6 green and then just done, I'm backing up now, 6, 6, 6, and then 4 olive, turn. And you can see where I'm going with this. Turn that green and then 6, 6, 6, 4 olive, turn. And I'm just typing these keys, right? And so you can sort of see the progression here. But, you know, being a computery kind of guy, I'm a bit lazy when it comes to this. And you could see I could make a mistake if this were a little bit more complicated, that I could do 5 or, instead of 4 pentagons, etc. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to start again. And this time what I'm going to do is say 6 green, and then 1, 2, 3, 6, 4, and then olive, turn. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to pop it up here in the E bank here and just go XE for cut. And now I'm going to just use it 4 times. And you can say, oh, that's kind of cool. Maybe a little bit interesting. But, did I choose the right colors? And you could imagine I could go back now and then maybe make a few things red. And what's interesting is I'm just adding. It seems it doesn't change it forever. And so if you look at the code, how it developed it, it branched. It's using a branching every time I click on something. And so if I wanted to change the rest of it red, for instance here, instead of using a branch, I sort of backspace and then hit red. And so you can see then it sort of remembers the red. Some fine little details here about how the code works. But anyway, coloring, you can get into that and make something pretty and things. But one of the features I've added is something called these little rainbow keys. And so let's just see how they work. And so in this case, I'm going to do 6, and I'm going to hit the quotes here. I can either type it or just put it there, and so you can see 6 quotes. And I'm going to be lazy, and so rather than keep typing it, I can just go 1, 2, 3, 4. And now I'm going to do a 4 and then a turn. Typing works as well, but this time I'm going to do pop it here and then go 1, 2, 3, 4. And so what it means here is rather than selecting your colors, what it does is as it's running through the code, it says 6 and then quote, which means go up a color. And then, so it goes 6 up a color, 6 up a color, etc. And so it automatically makes this kind of pretty picture without too much effort, of choosing all the colors, which can be a little bit whatever. And now you can embellish. And so embellishing sometimes is kind of nice to just do. And so you notice it inherited the color that I was on. And so I could just sort of play around here and maybe add some things. And you think, okay, I like the playing around, but by doing it here, it's a bit of a pain. So what I want to do is actually I want to hit this one. And so I'm going to clear it all and then go back to this one. And now I'm going to add those squares that I just added. And I got an idea in mind. So 3 squares, 2 squares, 1 square, and no squares. Okay, and so now I'm going to put that here. And so now I'm going to hit 4 copies. And I'm just going to shrink this a little bit so I can see it all. And so you can see this kind of interesting pattern. And you think, that's kind of fun. Now, part of the reason for automation, right, so I can, keep doing these things, is that it's about speed, right? How do you make things quickly? And you can sort of start reading the code over here where you're saying, okay, I am now at the front, the first triangle. And had I started not with red, but say with blue, watch what happens. Because all of these quotes mean up a color. If I put a blue here, everything changes, right? And so you could start it anywhere you want. And as well as if you notice, there's 8 colors. And so as soon as you hit after 8 changes, it cycles around. And so this just happens to be, I'm using sort of this nice pattern. Now, another kind of fun thing you can do is instead of just changing the first colors, you can actually just insert a quote in here. And so when you do that, everything gets shifted. And so you can see I can sort of walk the colors around, and so it becomes a kind of a nice little rainbow effect, a shifting rainbow. And I can delete them and it does the same thing. So in some sense, you can do a little bit of work and then have some fun things happen all at once. But yeah, so these little rainbow buttons kind of start giving you this sense of how these colors are constructed. And so let's try that again. And so here, when we go, I'll start with just this one here, the hexagon. And so remember, it was just hexagon with a quote, so it says color up. And then it goes color up, color up, color up, color up, color up, color up, and then we're going to be off the screen. And so instead of doing that version, I'm going to do this version, where I use a pentagon and then do the color change. So this one. And so I'm going to change it here. And so now you can sort of see how it'll all fit. And so I can make it maybe slightly bigger. And so yeah, and you can keep going until you get it all the way around. But you notice there's 8 colors because these are 10 pentagons, and it sort of stops here. And you got 2 more and it repeats. And so if I keep clicking this button, it's just going to sort of spiral around. And you can see it's just adding the same code. So it's kind of an interesting thing to have these banks where you can keep using the same code. So let me just, for a little bit nicer pattern, if I, instead of doing, say, this, if I turn left, and then, so I'll do it here, put another pentagon down in this. So now if I have that one there, watch what happens. A little bit more interesting. And so, yeah, you sort of get used to these things and you can sort of play with them a bit. And so, modifying these types of things. So that's 5 of those. And so you can say click it 5 times. Now, it becomes a little bit more tricky when you've got multiple things. And, if this were, well, the same thing with heptagons, what happens? Well, it's a little bit more laborious. So I say this one, quote, turn left. This one, turn right. And so I'll get rid of this one, say, and I'll put it here. Lots more, and it would get worse in some sense. And, but I can now start playing around saying, well, what fits inside? And you can sort of do these things again and again. But anytime you've got a thing that's patterned, rather than doing something 7 times, what would be better? Well, you go back and you say, I could have done it once with this one, and that was, I think, right here. And so when I don't need my spider anymore, so I get this one here maybe. And so if I start clicking on this one, you can see it's maybe a little bit easier. So going here, maybe I'll put an extra thing there. And so you can sort of start playing. And so, but you do it once rather than many times. But to find out what might fit, you could say, hey, what would this look like? And put a few things in here to design, and then sort of say, hey, that's not bad. And so go back to the template here and say, what was it I'll do again? And see if I can, and maybe I didn't like this part here, so I can start deleting maybe the square and saying, now try this one. Yeah, sort of kind of fun. And then if I wanted to, I could kind of go back to this thing here and get into that code and start adding in this sort of effect. Anyway, so the rainbow button is kind of a fun thing. And then when you're starting to use these patterned type things, you can sort of imagine. And there's actually easier ways to even do this that I'll maybe talk about next video. But for now, if you think about these rainbow buttons, they can sort of add a lot of interest without being a lot of work, whereas here it might be a little bit more work to do it. Anyway, for now, I'll leave it there. And good luck sort of using these new rainbow buttons. Cheers.